Imagine conquering a mountain shrouded in mist aboard a steam train older than your grandparents. We're heading to Mount Snowdon's summit, the highest mountain in Wales and England. The weather may not be on our side, but the history, moody scenery and the experience will be no less amazing. Jump aboard for a fascinating journey on Snowdon's Mountain Railway. We're on our way to Wyddfa, the Welsh name for Snowdon. If you've been following our North Wales adventures, you'll know we've been staying in the picturesque village of Bethgelert. The drive to Llanberis, where we'll catch the train, is breathtaking. We skirt Snowdon's base and wind through valleys before arriving in the village with one of the biggest slate quarries in the world. But before all that, let's enjoy the scenery along the A498. There are many places you can pull over and take in the views, like this stop to look back down on Lake Gwynant and what should have been a perfect view of Snowdon and the other mountains in Snowdonia National Park. We have reached Penw Pass car park, where many of the hikers looking to conquer the summit of Snowdon by foot begin their walk along a choice of 3 tough trails. Looking at the signs, you need to pre-book a space here in advance. We now begin our descent on the A4086, the Llanberis Pass. The drive down, or up for that matter, is quite wonderful. We drop from 359 metres to 110 metres above sea level. The road will bring us into the famous slate quarry village to meet our train. There is plenty of parking in Llanberis, whether here at the station car park or around the other attractions. Parking was £4 for 4 hours, which is just enough time to get up and down Snowdon, as the train only allows you 30 minutes at the top. You must come down on the same train you went up on. This is Llanberis station, where you can buy tickets for the ride. However, it's incredibly popular and you would be very lucky to get a ticket just by turning up. Booking in advance is essential. All tickets for the day of our visit were sold out. You can check pricing and timetables on this website. A diesel service starts the day at 9 AM, and this is just departing the station now. Our locomotive is getting up steam in the shed in preparation for our 9:30 departure. Taking a steam service up does cost more than the diesel. There are many narrow gauge railways in Wales, but this one is extraordinary. A rack railway, the only one in public use in the United Kingdom. You can see the third rail with the teeth quite clearly in the station, and we'll talk more on that later. Before you board the train, you can visit the shop and have a look around for something to take home as a souvenir. You'll also find some information boards explaining the history of the line, but we'll be explaining that on the way up. At 9:20, our locomotive and carriage slowly make their way to the platform, and we can board for our journey to the summit, which will take a little under an hour to complete. We pull away from the station dead on 9:30. The first few meters are on a relatively flat gradient. Another locomotive is being readied for a later service. Before the railway, adventurous Victorian hikers could hire a pony and guide to take them up a bridle path to reach the summit and even stay in a wooden hut overnight. We start to climb out of Llanberis, and the chug of the loco becomes stronger as it pushes us towards the summit and over the Afon Hwch viaduct. Llanberis was connected by a branch line to Bangor in 1869, linking the remote areas of Wales and bringing workers to the quarry and tourists to the area. In the same year, Sir Richard Moon, chairman of the London and North Western Railway, proposed a new line to Snowdon Summit. He, however, faced fierce opposition from a local landowner, Mr. Ashton Smith, who feared the railway would disrupt the landscape. For over 20 years, the proposal was rejected, but in the early 1880s, Ashton Smith was finally persuaded by the benefits and the financial gain of allowing the railway to be built on his land, setting the stage for a remarkable engineering feat. The first turf was cut by Mrs. Enid Ashton Smith on her family's land in December 1894. In fact, the number 2 locomotive was named Enid in recognition. For the next 14 months, 150 men with dynamite picks and shovels laid almost 8 kilometres or nearly 5 miles of track to the summit of the mountain at a cost today of £10 million. As the track had such a steep incline, up to 1 in 5.5, a standard locomotive would not have been able to grip and maintain traction. Another solution was needed, and they looked to Europe for the answer. Switzerland was already well versed in building railways in the mountainous regions of the Alps, so their experiences with a rack and pinion system became vital to building this narrow gauge railway. The third rail in the centre with its teeth is the rack rail. A cog called the pinion wheel on the locomotive slots into these teeth. You can see an example on the platform in Llanberis. This provided the traction and the driving force to take the train up and down the mountains safely. We've arrived at Hebron station, where trains can pass on the single-track line. It's a brief stop whilst they check that the track ahead is clear, and then we're off again. The Swiss Locomotive and Manufacturing Company of Winterthur took an order for 5 locomotives in 1895, ready for the opening a year later. Another 3 were built in the 1920s following the success of the line. Of the 8 built, 7 are still in the possession of the railway company today, although a couple have been retired after long and illustrious careers. Number 2 Loco Enid is still going strong and has covered over 3 million kilometres, almost 1.9 million miles, up and down the line for 127 years. We have now reached halfway station, having climbed the first 500 metres, 1,641 feet. The locomotive is thirsty and will take on water here.
Mobile 6 remaining. So the fireman's going to fill the tanks with water here now.
A diesel service train is coming down the mountain and will pass us at this point. 90 years after the first purchase of steam locomotives, the first diesel units were delivered and proved so successful that another 2 were commissioned to join the fleet. The completion of the track, the delivery of the locomotives and carriages signalled a readiness to open the line. This was set for the 6th of April 1896. 2 trains were dispatched to the summit with full loads of passengers. The ascent was a success even though the weather was similar to today. The same couldn't be said for the descent. The engine, Llanberis, struggled just above Clogwyn station. The overloaded train and a dip in the track caused the pinion wheel to pop out, stripping the train of its brakes and sending it hurtling downhill. Pickles, the driver, applied the handbrake to no avail. With the train unstoppable, he and the fireman leapt for their lives, and the locomotive failed a left-hand curve and tumbled from the track, crashing down the mountainside, luckily without the carriages. Climbers were startled by what they thought was a giant boulder falling towards them, but it was the runaway engine. Back on the tracks, the carriages, now driverless, also accelerated until the guard applied the independent brake and it was finally brought to a jarring halt. Tragically, one passenger, Mr. Ellis Roberts, panicked. Leaping from the speeding carriages, he struck his head on rocks and suffered fatal injuries. As if this situation wasn't dire enough, the second train, unaware of the disaster due to the poor visibility, slammed into the stranded carriages at Clogwyn. Amazingly, there were no further deaths. An inquiry blamed the crash on track instability and the excessive weight of the train. Stricter weight limits were imposed, which is why you only see one carriage to this day, and a gripper rail system was added so the train pinion could not pop out. The Snowdon Railway was closed for over a year for all the changes to be applied, reopening on April the 9th, 1897. Thankfully, since then, there have been no accidents of this kind, and it's very safe to travel on this train. We are nearing the summit station. Sadly, the cloud has not allowed us to see the amazing views. I'm told you do need to be very lucky to have a clear day. We'll spend about 30 minutes here. A new visitor centre opened in 2009, replacing one built in the 1930s by acclaimed local architect Clough Williams-Ellis, whom you'll be familiar with if you watched our Port Meriam video last week. The building was to last for nearly 75 years, but the challenging weather had taken its toll, so a new modern building was erected. So we've made it to the summit of Snowdon, and the weather is atrocious. We're not even going to actually try and walk up to the summit itself because visibility is so low, you can barely see in front of you walking up. It's really cold up here, even though down in the base area, it's about 18 degrees. It's exceptionally cold up here. I guess that's because we're right in the cloud right now. So not the day we expected, but nevertheless, we have made it to the top of Snowdon. We probably should have tried to make the final walk to the very summit. I do regret we didn't try. The visitor centre has toilets, a cafe and shop, and a place to keep warm and dry whilst we wait to return to Llanberis. It also gives us a chance to see our locomotive pattern, number 6. Notice the sloping boiler, a unique feature. You can see it better here in the station, designed like this so that it's level on the incline. It's time to head back, and the weather improved just slightly on the way down, so here are a few highlights of the journey back where it's possible to get a glimpse in places of what we should have been seeing on the way up. Our adventure on the railway may be at an end, but there's so much more to see here in Llanberis. Let's take a look ahead to next time. The slate industry dominated the economy of Wales in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and there's no better place to learn of the blood, sweat and toil it took to quarry the slate than here in Llanberis. Dinorwig Quarry was one of the largest in the world, and we can go back in time to uncover the quarrymen's captivating stories of hardship, grit and community. Join us next time at the National Slate Museum and another heritage railway line in the village of Llanberis. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a moment. Thanks for watching the Memory Seekers, and see you again soon.